Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha, Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into Ezekiel, the 21st chapter. And in the 20th chapter, is pretty much the Lord telling Ezekiel to basically condemn, the wicked elders of Israel that were coming to inquire of the Lord while they were still in their abominable ways, all right, committing idolatry and so on and so forth. And the Lord continues to pronounce judgment against Israel, okay, for the wickedness that they've been doing. So now in Ezekiel chapter 21, verse 1, it says here, the parable of the sword of the Lord. And for the most part, a lot of these various chapters, the underlying message or theme here is still the Lord speaking concerning the judgment that he's going to bring against the Israel, okay, particularly Jerusalem, because of the wickedness that they were, doing, the abominations they were committing in the land. And all this eventually did lead up to the Lord having Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians go up in there and destroy the temple and basically destroy Jerusalem. All right, so Ezekiel 21:1, and the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face toward Jerusalem, and drop thy word toward the holy places, and prophesy against the land of Israel. And say to the land of Israel, and basically drop the word, prophesy is basically saying the same thing in so many words. So speak or prophesy against the land of Israel. And say to the land of Israel, Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I am against thee, and will draw forth my sword out of his sheath, and will cut off from thee the righteous and the wicked. Now the sword the Lord is talking about is not like some super special spiritual divine sword that he has literally in the heavens. The sword here represents destruction that the Lord is going to bring. And as we know, according to history, the actual manifestation of that was by way of the Babylonian armies, okay, that came and caused this destruction here. And as the Lord says, I will cut off from thee the righteous and the wicked. And this is basically the Lord saying that he's not gonna spare anybody. Although when it actually happened, you still had some people that were allowed to live. But the point here is the emphasis on the destruction that the Lord is going to bring when he says that. Seeing then that I will cut off from thee the righteous and the wicked, therefore shall my sword go forth out of his sheath against all flesh from the south to the north. So pretty much everybody is going to get that work. That all flesh may know that I, the Lord Yahweh, have drawn forth my sword out of his sheath. It shall not return any more. So the judgment the Lord had pronounced over and over and over again, by the mouth of the different prophets, but in this instance, by the mouth of Ezekiel, the Lord is saying here that judgment is going to go forth. And everybody's going to know that I'm the one who has done it, because I had you proclaim this so many times before it actually happened. Sigh therefore, thou son of man, with the breaking of thy loins, and with bitterness sigh before their eyes. So what the Lord is saying here is, put some acting into it, move as though, you're extremely grieved. All right, when he says sigh with the breaking of thy loins, that you're extremely grieved before their eyes, all right, before the Israelites that were captives there with Ezekiel, because they were bearing witness to the prophecies that were coming out of the mouth of Ezekiel. And it shall be when they shall say, or when they say unto thee, Wherefore sighest thou? That thou shalt answer, For the tidings, because it cometh. And every heart shall melt, and all hands shall be feeble, and every spirit shall faint, and all knees shall be weak as water. Behold, it cometh, and shall be brought to pass, saith the Lord Yahweh. So when they ask you, why are you sighing? Why do you look like that? And you're going to tell them, because of the news, the judgment that the Lord is bringing. It's coming. And when it happens, like it says, every heart shall melt. Meaning that people they're gonna basically lose, any strength, any hope, because of how bad it's gonna be. Right? And all hands shall be feeble. Nobody is gonna have power to be able to defend themselves or fight against it. Right? And every spirit shall faint, and all knees shall be weak as water. This is all putting emphasis on how broken and destroyed the people are going to be because of the judgment the Lord has pronounced against them. So Ezekiel is supposed to tell them, this is why I'm sighing. This is why I'm so grieved. Verse 8. Again, the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, prophesy, and say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh. Say, a sword is sharpened, and also furbished. Okay, furbished meaning that it's made new again. It's made sharp. It is sharpened to make a sore slaughter. Actually, let me type this in here. See if we have some definition for this. Right, so we're dealing with the same word here. Now, when you go to buy something, typically electronics, you can, when you have a used product, they usually call it refurbished. Okay. Now it says here, what does a refurbished mean? A refurbished product is one that has been expertly restored and tested by the manufacturer or qualified seller. Products are cleaned, repaired, and reconditioned to 100% functionality and then repackaged with new accessories. So that is refurbished, furbished again. So what do they do again? They make this product new again. They make it sharp, on point. All right, conditioned back to 100%. That is a refurbished. So if something is furbished, not having to be refurbished, if it's already furbished, meaning it's being made almost to the best quality that it can be. So when you're dealing with a sword, for example, one that is furbished will be a sword that is made very sharp. Right, so it says here, it is sharpened to make a sore slaughter. And the Lord is speaking metaphorical here, but he's saying, I'm preparing a sword against you. I'm preparing this destruction against you. But in the metaphorical sense, he's saying that I'm making this sword sharp, so that when it comes upon you, it's gonna cut down everything. Okay, now historically, like I mentioned before, this was by way of the Babylonians coming against Jerusalem. But of course, applying this now to our time period, because it is applicable, meaning the Lord was pronouncing judgment against Israel because of their wicked ways back then, and he brought it to come to pass using the hand of Nebuchadnezzar and the rest of the Babylonians. But guess what? In this time, the Lord is using us to also prophesy against our people, against the wickedness that they're doing, about the judgment that he has pronounced against them in this time. So in this time, the Lord is also going to bring a sword. It's just not going to be by Nebuchadnezzar, but this time it's going to be by Esau, Edom, and all the different mechanisms the Lord has put in place. Okay, but like I mentioned in previous videos, dealing more with the historical aspect of this, let's keep on going. So it says here, it is sharpened to make a sore slaughter. It is furbished that it may glitter. So when you have a sword that is sharp, that is clean, that is on point, you can have that. You can see like that glare. It's so sharp you can see a reflection in it. So the Lord is saying here by the mouth of Ezekiel, a sword, or really he's saying this to Ezekiel, that I've prepared a sword. I've prepared some major destruction, so sharp that it may glitter. Should we then make mirth? Meaning, is this the time for games, for laughing, to be in a chill mindset when a sword is being sharpened to make to do some extreme killing? It contemneth the rod of my son as every tree. Now, when you look at the word contemneth, all right, it means like to despise, to reject, to disregard. As it says here, the rod of my son is every tree, meaning this sword is going to cut down, okay, even the Israelites, regardless of their, or really in this case, Judah, right, or Jerusalem, regardless of their position or authority or whatever it is, it's going to cut them down like as if it was cutting down just another tree. So anything, pretty much this sword is going to cut down anything in its way. That's how it's going to make that sword slaughter. And he hath given it to be furbished, that it may be handled. The sword is sharpened, and it is furbished to give into the hand of the slayer. And like I said, this is metaphorical, but representing the Babylonians and what they were going to do. Verse 12, cry and howl, son of man, for it shall be upon my people. It shall be upon all the princes of Israel. Terrors by reason of the sword shall be upon my people. Smite therefore upon thy thigh. And that smiting upon thy thigh is also another way of expressing grief. Okay? So the Lord is saying here that cry and howl, because this is going to be, this is going to be major. And it was. Right? When you read the details about the destruction that happened, it was major. That temple was not a light thing. It wasn't something that you just got up and built in 2 days. Jerusalem being that defense city, the massacre that happened during this time, it was bad. And that's what the Lord is saying here. Now, why does he emphasize the princes of Israel? Because the leaders at that time, were the ones that were really spearheading and pushing the people in this direction. I believe either Ezekiel the 8th chapter or around that time, the Lord basically gave Ezekiel a vision of what was happening there, and he could see, Jaazaniah, and the rest of them worshiping, the idols, some worshiping the sun god, and all of these different wicked things they were doing over there. Because it is a trial. And what if the sword contemneth or contemn even the rod? It shall be no more, saith the Lord Yahweh. Okay, meaning that if this sword that I'm bringing doesn't even regard the scepter, the rod, really doesn't regard anyone, then whoever this sword is coming against, they're done. It shall be no more. Okay. Thou therefore, son of man, prophesy and smite thine hands together, meaning clap, and let the sword be doubled the third time. The sword of the slain, it is the sword of the great men that are slain, which entereth into their privy chambers. Okay, now in this sense, the doubling the third time is to emphasize the level of destruction or death or bloodshed that was going to come by way of this judgment. Now, the sword of the slain, meaning by the hand of this sword, you're gonna have all these people that were slain, the great men, the princes, the elders, all of them. Now, when it says which entereth into their privy chambers, when you actually look into the word, I believe entereth as well as privy, it's the same meaning, which is to surround. So this sword was going to be upon them on every side. And it did come upon them on every side, starting by way of a siege. And once they broke through the walls, it was over. Them soldiers flooded up in there from all sides, killing, burning, massacring. I have set the point of the sword against all their gates, that their heart may faint, and their ruins be multiplied. It is made bright. It is wrapped up for the slaughter. So the Lord is basically, and I've directed these swords against, all their gates, really all around Jerusalem. That they may be afraid, and their ruins may be multiplied, meaning this destruction is going to hit them from all sides. It is made bright, right? When the sword is made bright, meaning it's been made sharp, like I described earlier before, to where you can see a reflection off of it. If light shines on it, it reflects back. And it is wrapped up for the slaughter, so it's made sharp. Go thee one way or other, either on the right hand or on the left, whithersoever thy face is set. Now this is just in reference to the swinging of the sword, right? When you even read in other translations, it'll tell you that, you know, swing one way, swing to the other, you know, just cut, kill, destroy. I will also smite mine hands together, and I will cause my fury to rest. I, the Lord Yahweh, have said it. So the Lord is saying, I'm going to bring this judgment, and until I'm satisfied, it's gonna be just massacre. It's gonna be bad until I'm pleased. Okay, and then I'm gonna say, all right, you good. Verse 18, the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto me again, saying, also, thou son of man, appoint thee 2 ways, that the sword of the king of Babylon may come. Both twain shall come forth out of one land, and choose thou a place. Choose it at the head of the city, or of the way to the city. So basically the Lord said, select 2 paths, okay, by which the king of Babylon is going to go through. He's going to go, all right, and both of them has to be like a forked road, okay, coming from one land. So they're going to go in one direction, and then there's going to be 2 paths that they can go down, okay, and then specify a place, okay, as it says here, choose thou a place, and choose thou a place, choose it at the head of the way to the city. So right at the path, the entrance that leads to the city. Now, whether, you know, the Lord required Ezekiel to maybe draw this on some, you know, some map or some whatever, okay, it doesn't specify, but the point is, he was telling him, set 2 paths, and we're going to see why. It says, appoint a way, that the sword may come to Rabbah of the Ammonites, and to Judah in Jerusalem the defenced. So these 2 paths, one of them is going to lead to the land of the Ammonites, and the other to Judah, to Jerusalem. Because remember that the Babylonians, they were coming from the east, right? The capital of, let's see, if you look at the Neo-Babylonian Empire, I think this should suffice, or yeah, this is not bad. Yeah, all right. So you can see here, Babylon is all the way over here in the east. All right, right here in Mesopotamia, and on the left you have Judah, but somewhere around here, the neighboring eastward of Jerusalem or Judah, you had the Ammonites, right? You had Moab and Ammon, and so on. Okay, let me see. Maybe this is a good one. Yeah, you can see Moab over here, which Ammon and Moab were adjacent to each other. Okay, so he says set 2 paths. One will lead to Judah, one will lead to Ammon. It says here, for the king of Babylon stood at the parting of the way, at the head of the 2 ways, to use divination. So when he would get there, deciding the problem, or the matter of deciding which path to take. Okay, it says here the head of the 2 ways. So right at the part where the road parts, right, it forks out. The king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, in order to make a decision on which path to take, it says here would use divination, right? It says here, for the king of Babylon stood at the parting of the way, at the head of the 2 ways, to use divination, to make his arrows bright. He consulted with images, he looked in the liver. Now, the examples that are listed here were all forms of divination. Okay, when it says here he made his arrows bright, that was a form of divining called bellimancy, which I have pulled up on here. We could read a little bit about it. And it says here, bellimancy is the ancient art of divination by use of arrows. And when you divine, okay, as it says here, divination is the attempt to gain insight into a question or situation by way of an occultic ritual or practice. So that's pretty much what we need to know on that. So in this case, Nebuchadnezzar would be trying to find out which path he should go. And they would use divination to be able to answer these questions. Like one example is we had the Most High, but we had the Urim and the Thummim, right? The Urim and the Thummim, where basically we could ask questions and consult of the Lord. These other nations used their forms of divination. So it says here, Belomancy is the ancient art of divination by use of arrows. The word is built upon ancient Greek, belos, ancient Greek, which is romanized as belos. It says here arrow, dart, and so on and so forth. So Belomancy was anciently practiced at least by Babylonians, Greeks, Arabs, and Scythians. The arrows were typically marked with occult symbols and had to have feathers for every method. In one method, different possible answers to a given question were written and tied to each arrow. So, I don't know, you may say something like, who should I attack first, Judah or the Ammonites? And then you would put maybe two arrows and you would write the Judah on one, Ammonites on the other. For example, 3 arrows would be marked with the phrases, God orders it me, God forbids it me, and the third would be blank. So this is another example. The arrow that flew the furthest indicated the answer. So they would have an arrow, they would shoot, the first one, God orders it me. Maybe you want to do something. They would shoot the first one, which God orders it me. They would shoot the second one, God forbids it me, and they would shoot the third one, which is blank. The one that reached the furthest length is what they would use to determine what action to take. So this is a form of their divining, and basically their reasoning is whatever God it is they're serving would control, which arrow. He would have the arrow that contained his answer be the one that goes the furthest, and they would use that to determine what the answer of their God was. So it says, the arrow that flew the furthest indicated the answer. Another method involves the same thing, but without shooting the arrows. They would simply be shuffled in the quiver, worn preferably on the back, and the first arrow to be drawn indicated the answer. If a blank arrow was drawn, they would redraw. Okay, so in this case, you would either shoot the arrows or they would shuffle them, and then you would just reach back at random, pick out an arrow and draw it, and then you would find out, okay, is this, what is the answer on this one? So that was one form of divination. As it says here, he looked, where we at, Ezekiel 21 and 21, to decide which path to go by. The king of Babylon would use divination, right? As it says, he made his arrows bright, i.e. the use of Belomancy. He consulted with images, which are idols, via his priests and so on and so forth. And he looked in the liver, which that was also another form of divining, which the Romans also ended up adopting. But here it says, a common method of divination in antiquity was the inspection of sacrificed animals. The liver was the single organ which summarized the custom of predicting the future among the Babylonians, Etruscans, Greeks, and Romans. And they had special priests that, I forgot the name of these. Let me see. I know the Romans had, Roman priests who could read animal liver. Let's see what comes up here. There we go. Hospices or hospice. So you had here, it says, in the religion of ancient Rome, before even reading this, finishing my point, these people were practiced in knowing how to read the liver of a sacrificed animal to determine what the future would be. Okay, so it says here, in the religion of ancient Rome, which this was adopted from their preceding empires, a haruspice was a person trained to practice a form of divination called haruspice, the inspection of the entrails of sacrificed animals, especially the livers of sacrificed sheep and poultry. Various ancient cultures of the Near East, such as the Babylonians, also read omens specifically from the liver, a practice also known by the Greek term hepatoscopy, also hepatomancy. Okay, so this is something that they did as well as a form of divination. Just so you understand what it's talking about here when it says, he made his arrows bright, he looked in the liver. It's not like he poked a hole in his liver and he started looking in there or some shit. But anyway, continuing, verse 22, at his right hand was the divination for Jerusalem, to appoint captains, to open the mouth in the slaughter, to lift up the voice with shouting, to appoint battering rams against the gates, to cast a mount, and to build a fort. So on the one hand of the divination would be to go against Jerusalem, to appoint captains, which when you read 2 Kings, the last chapter, I believe it's the last chapter, maybe the 22nd chapter or right around there, it talks about how one of the kings, I think it was Nebuzaradan or so, one of the captains that was appointed, how he basically led that destruction, the lighting of the fires and destroying of things. So on the one hand of the divination is go against Jerusalem, appoint captains, as it says here, to open the mouth in the slaughter, to lift up the voice with shouting, to represent basically those troops barging up in there. Because, that's what they did. It wouldn't be a war zone if you didn't hear any noise. When they broke through, Charlie, they're cutting people and shit, yelling and all of that. So that's that lifting up the voice with shouting, or opening the mouth in the slaughter. To appoint battering rams against the gates so they could break it down, and to cast a mount and to build a fort. And this is basically what they would do in the siege. And it shall be unto them as a false divination in their sight, to them that have sworn oaths. So those that had sworn the oaths were really those in Jerusalem, because they had become subservient to the Babylonians. And this individual, namely Zedekiah, being made that puppet king, had made an agreement with Nebuchadnezzar, where they would pay tribute and so on and so forth. But when they were to hear about this decision that was being made to come against Jerusalem, they would perceive it as though it was a false divination, that no, ain't no way that's going to happen. We got to deal with them. We're good, But as it says here, but he will call to remembrance the iniquity that they may be taken. Because he's going to say, well, guess what happened though? We did have an agreement, but you, Zedekiah, went and rebelled against me. And that's also spoken of in Ezekiel the 17th chapter. Right? So he rebelled and he tried to make, a covenant with the Egyptians, and it didn't really, that's really what brought Nebuchadnezzar that second time, to really destroy Jerusalem, because of that disobedience, or that rebellion, I should say. Verse 24, therefore thus saith the Lord Yahweh, because ye have made your iniquity to be remembered, in that your transgressions are discovered, so that in all your doings your sins do appear. Because I say that ye are come to remembrance, ye shall be taken with the hand. Meaning, because they continue to do the wickedness, so much so that they came up to the remembrance of the Lord. As we read in the previous chapter, how he even recalled the wickedness and the idolatry that Israel had been committing, even going back to the land of Egypt, all the way up until this point. It says here, in that your transgressions are discovered, and they don't try to hide it. They do it right out in the open, right? So that in all your doings, your sins do appear. So the Lord is saying, because you continue in this iniquity, that it literally right up in my face, because of that, as it says here, because I say that ye are come to remembrance. So my mind is on you now, because of all this wickedness you're doing. You're going to be taken with the hand, meaning you're going to be judged. And thou, profane, wicked prince of Israel, whose day is come, when iniquity shall have an end. Now, just like with the Amorites, okay, and with pretty much any empire or any nation or any person, the Lord appoints a certain time or a certain amount. So when it talks about the iniquity having an end, or the wickedness being at its, filling its measure, meaning that you've reached a certain point where now it's intolerable, meaning like you've now hit the threshold of judgment coming upon you. Okay, now this primary prince or ruler at the time who was wearing the crown was Zedekiah, okay, historically. And he was also off. So the Lord is saying here, your time has come for judgment. And guess what? He was judged. Right? It says here, verse 26, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, remove the diadem and take off the crown. This shall not be the same. Because what ended up happening? Zedekiah being the last one to sit on the throne, okay, of basically of the kingdom of Judah, and really Israel, because the northern kingdom were in the Americas at this point. But him being the last one to sit on the throne, when this happened, he was dethroned, right? And his eyes were plucked out, and he was taken as a prisoner to Babylon, where he died. But after him, nobody else sat on the throne. We didn't have any more kings up until a certain point, okay, which I'll explain. So as it says here, and take off the crown, this shall not be the same. So that way, that rulership, that ordinance, that dynasty basically got stopped. Okay, it says here, exalt him that is low and abase him that is high. So pretty much the Lord said he's going to flip it, with all this wickedness that is going on after destroying this order of doing things. The ones that were low represents the righteous ones, and the ones that were high represent the wicked ones, because the ones that were high in this place, these princes and these rulers of the land, they were the ones that were doing wickedness. Okay, but the Lord says here, I will overturn it, and it shall be no more until he come whose right it is, and I will give it him. So ultimately, who was that? Right? Who was it that whose right it was to actually inherit this kingdom? To actually be the true heir to the throne, to wear that, to be the king and the high priest, who upon whose shoulders the government would be on. It was ultimately Yahushua. Okay. Which even though he came, he was mocked as they mocked him, saying that he was the king. They mocked him being the king of the Jews. Okay, but pretty much up from because he's the true king of Israel, right? But up from the time, and when I say Yahushua, for those that are not familiar, is the Messiah. So up from the time of Zedekiah, we didn't have any kings. You had high priests, but we didn't have any kings until Yahushua came on the scene. And in fact, he is the king of the Jews, so much so that's why, let's get a quick precept. That's why this guy Herod felt so threatened. I think Matthew, the 2nd chapter. Yep. So this is Matthew 2:1, right? It says, now when Yahushua was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, because Herod was put in that position by the Romans. But it says here, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. Now, mind you that after the destruction of Jerusalem by the Babylonians, we didn't have any more kings after that, all the way up until Yahushua's time. Because ultimately he is the one whose kingdom would be an everlasting kingdom. Okay, and I believe there's also another precept I want to get, which I quoted. I spelled that wrong. Here we go. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. So what government is that? The government of the kingdom of heaven shall be upon his shoulder, meaning he is going to bear it. He's going to be the foundation of it. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty Power, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. The Mighty Power, when it says God, it doesn't mean that he is the Most High God. Okay, power, the word God in Hebrew is Allah, which means a power or a divine one. And so, and Yahushua is a divine one, so is the Most High, and so are the angels. But there's, even amongst divinities, there's a ranking. You have the Most High God, the Most High Power, the Most High, the highest judge. Then you have Yahushua, who is also a God underneath the Most High God. Okay, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace, which a father is one that brings forth others. So Yahushua is technically also a father, although he's a father under the Heavenly Father. Okay, did creation not start with him? So it says here, of the increase of his government and the peace, there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts, Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai, will perform this. Okay. So now let's go back to the book of Ezekiel chapter 21 and 28. And thou, son of man, prophesy and say, thus saith the Lord Yahweh concerning the Ammonites. So now the Lord says, speak against the Ammonites. Because remember, the Lord made us, or made the prophets, as he told Jeremiah, a prophet unto the nations. Because what prophets do is you prophesy, you tell the future, what's about to happen before it happens. Now, like even now in our time, but at the time of Ezekiel, the Lord was going to bring judgment not only against Jerusalem, but of course they were the focal point, because that's who the Lord is most concerned with. But it wasn't just Jerusalem that judgment came against. So the Lord told Ezekiel, prophesy concerning the Ammonites, because they're going to get that work too. That's why he told Ezekiel to appoint 2 paths for the king of Babylon to take. One to Jerusalem, but the other one was to Ammon. So the Lord pronounces judgment against Jerusalem, and then he says, now we're dealing with Ammon, right? It says here, verse 28, and thou, son of man, prophesy and say, that which the Ammonites today are the modern day Japanese. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh concerning the Ammonites, and concerning their reproach. Even say thou, the sword is drawn, for the slaughter it is furbished to consume because of the glittering. So guess what? That sword is going to come for you too. Whilst they see vanity unto thee, whilst they divine a lie unto thee, to bring thee upon the necks of them that are slain, meaning that they were under a false sense of security due to, like it says, they see vanity unto thee, meaning that when they divine, the things that they would tell you would be vanity, it wouldn't be true, right? They divine a lie unto thee. Now it says to bring thee upon the necks of them that are slain. The thee is really the sword, meaning to bring the sword upon the necks of them that are slain. Because by believing a lie, they weren't prepared for the onslaught that was coming to them, which indeed did happen. It says, of the wicked, whose day is come, when their iniquity shall have an end. Because at that point is when the Lord decided, okay, now is the time to bring this judgment. You've been reproachful, you've been committing these iniquities, now the judgment is coming against you. Shall I cause it to return into his sheath? So, and the sheath is what you put the sword back into, right? So the Lord is saying, should I put the sword back in the sheath? I will judge thee in the place where thou was created, in the land of thy nativity, which is really in the land of Palestine. Let me see if I can pull this up. Land of Ammon. Because remember that so here you go. So you have Ammon up here and you have Moab down here. And this area, remember that this is where Lot, which is the forefather, or really the father of the Ammonites and the Moabites, okay, this is where he was dwelling, like around this region in Sodom and Gomorrah, and you had the neighboring 5 cities. But when it was destroyed, he fled. Okay, he fled into the plains, the mountains, and so on and so forth. And ultimately, you can read the story in the book of Genesis, but he ended up becoming the progenitor of Ammon and Moab. So that's why you have their lands right here. But the Lord is saying here, I'm going to judge you in that land. I'm going to judge you in, where does it say that? Verse 30 says, in the land of thy nativity. So where you were born, where your homeland, that's where I'm going to judge you. And I will pour out mine indignation upon thee. I will blow against thee in the fire of my wrath, and deliver thee into the hand of brutish men, and skillful to destroy. So you're not going to escape when they come against you with their armies and all of that. Skillful to destroy, meaning that they're skilled in war. Verse 32, thou shalt be for fuel to the fire. Thy blood shall be in the midst of the land. Thou shalt be no more remembered, for I, the Lord, have spoken it. I.e., the Lord has pronounced judgment against them. And now when you actually read, this is concerning Ammon. If you just type in Ammon online, this is concerning Ammon. It says here, archaeology and history indicates that Ammon flourished during the period of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. So right around 626 to 539 BC. This contradicts the view dominant for decades that Transjordan was either destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar II or suffered a rapid decline following Judah's destruction by that king. Newer evidence suggests that Ammon enjoyed continuity from the Neo-Babylonian to the Persian period of 550 to 330 BC. One reason includes Ammon becoming a Babylonian province shortly after being devastated by Nebuchadnezzar II in the 580s BC, which is right around the same time that Nebuchadnezzar had came and devastated Jerusalem as well. Okay, so the Lord pronouncing this judgment by the mouth of Ezekiel against Ammon, that actually happened when the Babylonians actually went up against them and devastated them, as we're reading here. But eventually they were subjected and made a province under them, and eventually, they were able to, as it says here, do what they had to do. Okay, but that's pretty much it on the book of Ezekiel, the 21st chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.